Warm up for lesson 5-2. Pause to do the problems. And here are the answers. Lesson 5-2, dividing polynomials. Objective, dividing polynomials using long division, divide polynomials using synthetic division. Let's take a look at a long division, dividing by a monomial. So in this case, I have a polynomial right over here, 1, 2, 3 terms divided by a one-term polynomial. So we can rewrite it in this fraction form, and then we can take the fraction divided into 3 fractions. When we go ahead and do that, then we can go ahead and take a look at the numbers and reducing them, the x's, the y's on each fraction. And once we apply all the rules, we can get our simplified version. Here I have my polynomial in the numerator, and I put my monomial in the denominator. I've separated the fractions, and now I'm ready to reduce. And so 20 divided by 4 is 5. I can see that there are 4 c's in the numerator, 1 c in the denominator, so that'll be c to the third. There are 3 d's, I should say 2 d's in the numerator, 1 d in the denominator, so there'll be at least a d in the numerator, and then the f's are going to reduce. Minus 4, I can see the c's are going to reduce, the d's are going to reduce, I'll have 1 f remaining. The 4's are going to reduce, c's, d's, and f's, so I'm going to have 1. I have the same thing over the same thing, which is equal to 1. Let's go ahead and go to the next problem. And this negative 1 power is just another way of saying the reciprocal of the positive power, so that's going to be in the denominator. I've separated the fractions, and now I'm ready to simplify. So this is going to be 6x, and the y's are going to reduce. This is plus 9. I can see I'm going to have 2 x's in the numerator. I'm going to have 1 y in the numerator, and I'm going to have a z in the denominator. Pause and you try the problem. And here's the answer. Let's take a look at long division with a binomial. This is a binomial, but before we do that, let me remind you of how we divide with just numbers. So we divide 5 into the first 2 numbers, and that's going to be 2. And then we times these 2, and that's 10. And then our next step is to subtract. And when we subtract, we are going to get a 2, and then we're going to bring down the next number. And we're going to take 5 and divide it into here, and then so that's going to be 5 times. We're going to multiply 5 times 5, and that's 25. At this point, we are going to subtract, and we're going to get an answer of 2. And this answer is our remainder, and we usually put our remainder like this. So let's go ahead and do this problem. And we're going to go through the same process as we did over here. So take this first number, which is x squared, and divide it by this first term x, and that's how you're going to get your first number here, like we did with a 2. You're going to put it right above the x column because this is an x, so we're going to write x. Now what we're going to do is just what we did with the 2. We're going to multiply. You're going to take the x and multiply it to the x, and that's going to be x squared. You're going to take the x and multiply it to this, and that's negative 3x. And what we're going to do is we're going to subtract. In subtracting, this is going to change to a negative x squared, and when we add, that becomes 0. This is going to change to a positive 3x, and so when we add, that's going to be 10x. Now we're going to bring down the next number. We're going to take 10x, and we're going to divide it by, again, the first term, and that's going to be 10. That's going to give us an idea of what to put up here in our quotient. So this is going to be 10x minus 30, and remember we are going to subtract. And when we subtract, this is going to change to a negative, that's going to go to 0. This is going to change to a positive, and we're going to have a 0. So we're going to have 0 as our remainder. Let's go ahead and do the next problem. And I'm going to again go off to the side, take x squared, and divide it by this first term x. So x will be my first term. I'm going to put it above on the x column right here. I'm going to multiply x squared minus x. At this step, remember, I am subtracting. When I subtract, that's going to become a 0. When I subtract, that becomes a positive number. So now I have negative 12x. And then I'm going to bring down the next term. I'm going to take the negative 12x and I'm going to divide it by that first term, x. I'm going to have negative 12, and that's what I'm going to put up here, negative 12. I'm going to multiply. And I'm going to subtract. And when I subtract, this becomes a positive, that's 0. Subtract, this is going to become a negative, and I'm going to have 0. And I know I'm done because I've reached my last column here. Okay, time for you to try it. Pause. And here's the answer. Let's take a look at another type of division. It's called synthetic division, and what this is going to do is it's going to be able to allow us to find this answer without going through so much work. The only thing that I need to caution you is that when you have something like this that is missing a term, and the term that's missing is the x cubed term, or the x term I should say, and when that term is missing, we have to insert it into our synthetic division. So that's the only caution I have for you as we go through this process. Okay, let's go ahead and start synthetic division. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the long division right here, and I'm going to do this problem side by side with the synthetic division. Okay, so the divisor over here was x minus 4. X minus r is the divisor for long division. But x minus r is one of our divisors, and so x equal to r is the divisor. The r is actually the divisor in our synthetic division. So in this problem, we have x minus 4 equal to 0. So x is equal to 4, and this is the key. This is our divisor in synthetic division. So we're going to put a 4 right here. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to only write the coefficients of all of this polynomial. So I'm going to write a 2, leave a space, negative 13, leave a space, 26, leave a space, negative 24. So what I'm doing is working with the coefficients and not necessarily writing the x terms, x's in there. Okay, for your first step in synthetic division, you leave this space right here that I have, and you're going to bring down this number, and this number is actually the first part of our answer, which is 2. Okay, your next step is to multiply these two numbers, and that is going to be an 8. I'll go ahead and put it in red, 8. Now this 8 is actually this 8 right here with already the negative distributed. So that's what this is. And when I add, I am going to get negative 5. And negative 5 is actually this answer right here, part of my answer, what I got right here. Okay, I'm going to take these two numbers, I'm going to multiply them, and when I multiply them, I'm going to get negative 20. And negative 20 is really occurring right here. Negative preceded by it, and negative right here. That's negative 20. I'm going to add, and when I add, I'm going to get a 6. And 6 is really this part of my answer right here. I'm going to take 24 times 6, and I have 24. Now when I add, I'm going to get a 0. And I put a little box here because that 0 really is this, the remainder right here. So this portion right here is my answer. Now how do I go ahead and write down the correct answer? Because these are only the coefficients. This is my constant, and then this will be my x term. So this is going to be negative 5x. And then this will be my previous term, which is 2x squared. So this is your constant, your x term, and then your x squared term. And this is the answer that I got right here without so much work. Let's go ahead and practice again. So here's my divisor, and my divisor, I'm going to find what x is equal to, and what x is equal to is going to be the divisor in synthetic division. I'm going to rewrite this in only its coefficients, 2, 3, negative 4, 15. I'm going to bring down this first number, and that's going to be the first part of my answer. I'm going to multiply these two, and that's going to be negative 6. And then I'm going to add negative 3. I'm going to multiply these two, and that's positive 9. I'm going to add, and that's 5. I'm going to multiply these two, that's negative 15. I'm going to add, and that's 0. Now the last term is always your remainder. Okay, now I'm going to actually write the answer down. So the answer is going to be 2x squared minus 3x plus 5, and there's no remainder, so I can ignore that part. Okay, here's my divisor. What I put in synthetic division is what x is equal to, so that's 2. And I'm going to write down 3, negative 8, 11, and negative 14. I'm going to bring down this term. That's going to be the first part of my answer. Multiply, multiply, add, so that's a 7, multiply, and then add, and this last term right here is my remainder. I'm going to go ahead and write the answer, 3x squared minus 2x plus 14. Now these examples have a missing term, and you can see a to the third is missing, so I have to keep that in mind when I set up my synthetic division. All right, my divisor is going to be negative 2, and then I'm going to write a 4. My missing term is the a to the third, so I'm going to put a 0. 2, negative 4, 12. So in synthetic division, you must have the placeholder even if it's missing. Bring down, so that's 4, multiply, and then so that's going to be negative 8. And then add, multiply, that's going to be 16, add, multiply, that's going to be negative 36, add, multiply, and that's going to be 80, and this is the first time I don't get a 0, so this is a remainder, 92. I'm going to put a little box to remind me that's my remainder. So this answer is going to be 4x to the third minus 8x squared plus 18x minus 40 plus, and this is my remainder, 92 over, and what I've divided by is right here, a plus 2. Okay, let's go ahead and do this one. Again, my r is going to be a 2, and I am missing a term, but this time I'm missing the square term. So this is going to be a 6, negative 8, 0, 12, negative 14. All right, bring down, that's a 6, multiply, that's 12. We'll have a 4, multiply, that's 8, add 8, multiply, that's going to be a 16, 28, multiply, that's going to be 56, and then that answer is going to be a 42. And this last answer is always your remainder. So the answer is 6x cubed plus 4x squared plus 8x plus 28, and then our remainder is 42 divided by, and you have to put this, the binomial there, b minus 2. Okay, your turn. And here's the answer.